Aber das
mit
ist alles
voller,
nicht, also, bitte?
ja, ich habe
Ich will
mit
nur sagen,
und ich weiß es nicht, ob sie zusammen gesprochen, also in der Vergangenheit, vielleicht ja oder nein, ich weiß es nicht. Fallen, yeah, you can speak in English with him, but I was wondering if you've talked with you before,
I,
because I think yes.
I don't think so. But ich wollte nur kurz noch sagen zu PkD, ganz kurz.
Ja.
Weil du gesagt hast, es ist sehr intensiv mit mir zu reden. Das ist alles nicht, also ich möchte nur ausdrücken, das ist alles nicht im bösen Willen. Ich bin einfach, manchmal bin ich ein bisschen, kann ich mir vorstellen, dass ich manchmal sehr intensiv bin und dass es vielleicht manchmal ein bisschen anstrengend ist. Aber das mache ich nicht, weil ich irgendwie, keine Ahnung, dich blöd finde oder sowas. Ich finde es sehr cool. Aber manchmal, weil mich diese Themen so interessieren und ich bin im Eifer, dann werde ich manchmal hitzig. Deswegen, ich hoffe, du nimmst mir das nicht alles nichts
Nein,
böse.
nein, natürlich nicht. Außer der Schlussfolgerung, dass es okay
Willst du
ist,
mich,
Babys zu töten. Aber ja, also
jetzt willst du mich wieder ärgern?
nein, ich nicht. Polen vielleicht, but yeah, no worries about it. Say hello to Polen.
Okay. Hey, Fallen, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up? I feel like you guys were just talking in another language about how you're gonna plot my killing.
No. I was just like expressing how much I love PkD.
Okay.
It's like, so let me try to give a proposition like on the table here, and we can like see the problems. Like so far as I understand, the strongest point that Nunc is making is basically like, look, when you get to a conclusion in the name, the trait dialectic, you are just saying it's absurd, and that's like too strong of a claim to make. You agree? Disagree? You agree that that's what you argue for?
I would say if absurd only boils down to, what I would say is that when you use the word absurd, it seems to me as if you put more punch into it, because in the end, what you're saying is, it's just my subjective stance on the matter that it's absurd. Yeah, I just have a subjective disagreement with it.
Oh, I would say more than that. So it's not just that it's out of line with the values of the person you're talking to, but out of line with the vast majority of people. So, for example, if someone says something like, yeah, it's totally okay to throw babies in the microwave, that would be, okay, sorry, 1 second, hold on. Sorry, some annoying people in the background. Yeah, as I was saying, if someone says that it's okay to throw a baby in the microwave, right, and then I say it's absurd, I could actually claim more than it's out of line with my values. I'd be comfortable claiming it's out of line with most people's values. Most people would probably look at that and be disgusted, right? And that I do think has more punch, because it could be that I'm the psychopathic one or something, or I'm the weird one when we're in the conversation and I'm just saying it's out of line with my values. That might not hit hard, but it does hit hard if everyone collectively agrees, oh, this person's gross, So I think you could claim more than that.
But what I would say in response to that is, what I think when you appeal, or what I would say in defense of my argument, I would say if you appeal to the majority value of like a society, it seems to me as if the people are very confused about what their moral values are. It seems that we have some nebulous idea of human beings as somehow worth protecting, but in some instances they're not, right? So we have some very vague idea, and it seems to me as if you just appeal to the very unreflected notion that people have, that you're appealing to comprehension that the majority of people have, right? That if properly explained, they wouldn't hold that view. That they wouldn't have that if you point to a given absurdity, I would say there are absurdities that if properly explained to the majority, they would understand that it's not indeed against their values.
Oh, I would agree that there are some such things. I think one of those is killing animals. I think most people would probably not be okay with that, but there's some things that I think would hold before and after introspection. One of those is throwing babies in the microwave. I think that there's not going to be almost anyone that's going to change their view on that before and after introspection.
I agree. I totally agree with that. But the point is when we go into the name the trait or something, right? Then it seems to me that the majority of people have some notion of humans to protect, right? We should protect humans. And you then, in the name the trait, basically construct something that confuses the person on whether it is human or whether it's not, because their understanding is, as I said, a vague notion, right? So when you then say, well, if I imagine a baby that has no brain, no nervous system, right? It doesn't feel anything. Could you be able to throw that into a microwave? Then it seems to me that people would say, yeah, you're just like, if it has no brain, it has no personality, it has no pain, then there wouldn't be any issue with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that in the earlier conversation with PkD that I had, that when you point out, or at least when he pointed out certain absurdities, that I would say, well, this is just the case of if the claim of absurdity means that the majority of people would disagree with it, is not because actually those people would disagree with it, it's just because they don't understand the situation fully. They can't make an informed judgment on it, or they haven't.
Oh, maybe that's just the dispute right there. Because when I say out of line with common norms, I mean out of line with, people's common norms given an idealized understanding of all the facts. Like they understand what, the animals or the humans' experience is like. They understand all the natural features of the world around them. And then what are their values? That's something that I'm pretty sure PkD would be saying is a view you have, one that's absurd given the population having an understanding of the natural facts.
But how would you ever make that judgment? How would you know what the majority of people or what society would think if they would know all the facts?
Yeah, it's an inference we can make based on how they feel given the information they do have, which approximates whatever the actual facts are. So, for example, you're comfortable saying that in the case of throwing babies in the microwave. And why is this? Because we already know that people have enough facts such that there's not other facts we could give them that would likely influence their judgment, because we know, seeing patterns in what things they typically value, where there are other facts in place, that it doesn't seem like trivial things like, whether the baby has little shoes on is going to make the difference. It seems as though we can quite comfortably say what sorts of facts would change their mind. Mental facts, that will probably change their mind. Like if the baby doesn't actually have a consciousness, it's just like an inanimate object of complex organs. But, if we say like they don't know all the facts of the baby, like they believe that the baby's conscious level is 7 and the baby's conscious level is actually 6.5 or something, that would not probably make much of a difference for people. And we could say that because we can just say, look, if they're this opposed to it, something that makes that small of a difference is not going to make them suddenly go, oh, I have no problem. They might say, I'm still horrified, maybe just a tad bit less horrified, but still horrified. So we could understand what sort of facts we could add or inject into the situation. and it still not have that big of an influence. And then we can imagine other things that people would, change their view on. So with animals, for example, I've seen many people that actually think animals are not conscious. That is something that's a big deal, because if I didn't think animals were conscious, I would also have a different view. So I can imagine that obtaining this natural fact would result in them thinking differently about whether the animal is valuable. So there's just inferences, like in conclusion, there's inferences we can make about what they would probably think given certain facts.
Yeah, so you would say, okay, we look at the, just to get this clear, you would look at the moral intuitions or moral stances people would have towards certain things, right? Where you know that they are, you would say they are uncertain, but they are not completely out of the line, right? They hint at what the real moral consideration is, right? They hint at the real thing. They're not really pinpoint, but they point towards the direction. You would look at that, and from that you would try to make some underlying principle, right? Where you say, okay, those seem to be the things that are governed, and then you say, okay, given that set that I derived from this inference, I would evaluate the given situation.
Right.
That's and you would say in that case, if you do this, right, then you could derive whether something would be absurd or not absurd.
Yeah. That's how we all do this sort of thing in our daily lives. Like, I could predict how PkD would answer certain questions that I've never asked him, because, I just have like a good understanding of the patterns in his values. I could just predict that. And we could also predict similarly for general society.
Okay. But so my not to be like, I love your explanation of that, but as I asked earlier, my earlier understanding, right? As I said, I think when you in the end it boils down to what you would say would be subjective things, right? So you would say in the end what I'm reflecting is like, even be it intersubjective, shared by a lot of people, it's just subjective viewpoints.
But that's all that's being claimed, right? It's not like anything more is said. I don't think PkD is not a subjectivist, but he's making some sort of subjectivist claim that goes further than this is my own desires. He's making some larger empirical claim, like this is actually a large number of people's desires, which he would predict based on those patterns I described.
Okay, if that's what you would say would be the understanding of absurd, then I would agree, right? Because that to me just sounds like a basic empirical claim, right? You could make that. But would you think that this somehow, like, is there some imperative or some force that follows from that? So what should I do if people deem my morality absurd, or my view on things? How would I deal with that?
Well, whether there's an imperative or force would depend. So, for example, I can imagine a case where it obviously would have an imperative or force, like if you value what most people's values are, right? You may not have that, but let's say you did, then there would be some imperative or force derived insofar as you now want to align with other people's values and not throw the babies in the microwave, for example. Another imperative or force that someone might have, if by imperative or force you mean imperative or force to change their behavior, is like some pragmatic one. So, if they have some certain values, they don't want to act on those in the society they're in, because it may very well lead to persecution, people having no respect for you if you said these things out loud, people thinking little of you, you struggling to find a partner because none of them want to be with a guy who wants to throw babies in a microwave or something.
Yeah.
So there's
With that, I totally agree. I was just wondering whether you think there's some, if it's not about the behavior, but if I hold a certain belief, and that belief is deemed absurd, then we would agree, yes, we shouldn't act on it because society might be angry at us, right? But is there some reason why I would change that belief based on the fact that people think it's absurd?
Well, that's just going to depend on your motivations, for which I described one motivation that seems like would obviously result in you changing your beliefs. But there could be someone without such motivations. Like, I can just imagine someone who does think it's okay to throw babies in the microwave, right? And me telling them that that's absurd would just result in them saying, yeah, okay, I still have the desire to do that, right? And it wouldn't motivate them, but that's not really what NTT is set out to do. It's not set out to motivate those types of individuals. It doesn't claim that there's this expectation that you would motivate those types of individuals, because that's not something intrinsic to NTT. That's just something about, normative disputes, right? When you get into a moral dispute with someone, if they truly just aren't motivated by any of these things, and there's just like these crazy ideas they have, like, I want to throw babies in the microwave, and I want to see people suffer, I want hell on earth, and I want to rape people, whatever, right? And you tell them, well, this is just strongly out of line with basically everyone's values. And they say, I do think that's true, and I'm just, not like them, and I am comfortable with that, right? You're probably not going to motivate some different way of thinking, but that's just, not an expectation that is had going into the discussion.
Yeah, this was just, I don't want to go into the background too much, but the question that where I was opposed, or the kind of statement that I was opposed to, was that the entity would present a problematic for certain kind of meta ethics or something. And my understanding, if I think about what it means for a problem, for if there's a problem for a view, right, that would mean that there would be some reason to change that view. But if somebody is totally fine, like he's willing to he wants to throw babies in the bed into the microwave, he has no issue with it, right? And he knows what follows from that, and he accepts all of it, right? Then for that kind of person, there's no reason to change their view, because there's no it presents no
Well,
there's no
like I said,
problem
there could be pragmatic reasons, and if we stipulate that they also have this desire to appease other people's desires, then there could be some principled issue. But excluding those two, no, they may not have a motivation to change. But like I said, when saying there's a problem on someone's view, or that there's likely to be a problem on someone's view, there's not this expectation that they're going to be motivated. That's not an expectation that's had. I mean, look, imagine if I'm giving an argument for climate change being real, right? I'm not having this expectation that my interlocutor will change their view on the matter. They could be completely deranged, just deny science. They could do all these things, right? But the expectation I do have is, if they have some certain sort of epistemic standards in place, if they have some certain values, then they would update their view. It's conditional on that. In the same way with NTT, right? I don't think the claim is being made that there will be a problem for everyone. I do think that one can make the claim there will be problems for many people, maybe most people, in fact. But trivially speaking, there's not going to be a problem for a psychopath. But that's just not an expectation that was had. Did you ever think NTT was set out to show a problem on a psychopath's view? Other than, a problem to the audience, like they would look at it and say, that view doesn't seem tenable in response, other than a pragmatic issue, other than some issue internally with the principles, like what else is it supposed to show?
I don't think it is supposed to show anything else. But in my understanding, what it seemed to me was claimed again. Or this might be just a misunderstanding of what I would say is an issue or a problem for a certain view, right? Because when we say there's this pragmatic issue or this pragmatic thing of like we what is the word? We punish certain behavior, or we disallow it or something, right? That
Mhm.
only presents a reason to change the behavior, right? I could understand if somebody said, well, the entity, or like if I show you something is absurd, that means that the society dislikes it, so you shouldn't do it in the sense of, well, you don't want to reap the consequences, right? But that wouldn't motivate you in any way, shape, or form to change the view of you thinking it would be okay if I did it, right? It would not be that there wouldn't be any moral wrong there.
Yeah. That
Okay.
we're just agreeing. Like, again, I don't
Mhm.
have this expectation, nor do I think most people who are competent with NTT have this expectation that they're going to make a psychopath not a psychopath. If that was the case, NTT would be like some sort of miracle dialectic that would revolutionize the field of medicine. I don't think it's setting out to do that. Like, what the fuck? But I'll tell you what goals, an NTTer has, or expectations. They do have an expectation that most people, including people in the audience, would hear the view and realize that it's generated an untenable distinction between humans and animals. As in, the audience would look at that and say, okay, this view for, showing why it's okay to factory farm animals and not humans does not work for me, because my value as an audience is definitely not like this. So that seems to be ruled out. So that doesn't seem like it's going to justify killing animals. Let's see what else there is. And then, many people could come up and posit all these different views that are all unpalatable and psychopathic to them. And NTT would meet the expectation it does have of showing that these views are unpalatable to most people. It's not meant to cure the psychopaths, I'll tell you that much. Like,
Yeah.
But I think it's also
I
interesting
know.
that we observe that some people do reflect and change their view, not their behavior also. So you have that one as well.
I totally agree. I think that if you change your behavior long enough, it will also change your views, I bet. Right? That seems to me quite clear. I would have to think about what I think the majority would think of being palatable. I hate that word. Of being tasteful.
Well, do you
taste.
currently think the entailments of your actual view are something that majority is comfortable with?
Yeah, I don't know. Because
Like a lion eating a being that looks like a human baby, but on your criteria it's not a human baby because it doesn't have hold on, let me tell you exactly what it was. Capabilities, personhood, and as such you don't perceive it as human. I think the jury has decided on that one. No?
What? That I didn't follow. What?
I'm saying I think that the jury has decided that that view is absurd, no?
What was your presentation of my view?
A lion
Yeah.
eating
A baby
this
that doesn't have personhood, right?
yeah, this picture that I tagged.
Yeah,
That's
my point of view, my ethical point of view would be capabilities. I would say that if you have two beings and you have to decide between the two, the one with a greater amount of capabilities wins.
yeah,
So
but
if
it's
you have
not
yeah,
a decision between. You can save both. Like, look, you've said like a lion is eating a gazelle, and I asked you whether or not you would shoot the lion. You said no, but then when I said a lion is about to eat a human baby apart, you said you were going to shoot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I ask you, what's the difference between the baby and the gazelle, right? What's true of the baby but false of the gazelle?
The baby has more capabilities. This is a difference in degree, not in kind.
Yeah, like maybe you want to say more about the capabilities. What capabilities are you referring to? Mental capabilities?
No, I would mean all capabilities. So, for example, capability to be happy, capability to read, to write, to speak, capability to jump around, capability to run, capability to eat, capability to drink, capability to breathe. All of those, just the total amount.
Okay.
Wait, are you comparing their capabilities to the lion or things that the lion preys on, like a gazelle? What are you comparing them to when you say more?
I compare the human to the zebra or to the gazelle.
Oh, so
say
to
the
the other thing
human
getting
is
predated
more.
on by the lion. Yeah, okay. So then, I mean, I would just ask you, right? Imagine that this baby is actually, they have like a mental condition where they are Down syndrome or something else, to where they're not going to read, write. Let's say they actually have something more like cerebral palsy in combination with other sort of mental impediments that result in them actually having a similar cognition when they grow up to that of a zebra, right?
Yeah.
Of which, by the way, there's millions of humans on planet Earth today with that cognition, because humans are variable. There's a lot of genetic diversity, and it ends up that some humans just have like these sorts of cognitive faculties. The question is, would you then say that it's permissible for the lion to eat that baby?
So you're saying we have somebody who's a member of the human species, but basically has the same capabilities as a horse or a zebra or a gazelle.
Yeah, mentally, yeah.
I don't care about the mental thing. I mean, in general, like all
I mean, I would
capabilities.
say the human has the ability to grow fingernails, unlike the zebra, but is that what you're throwing under capabilities?
No, the things that you can like do, right? But as an agent.
Oh, that seems like it's subsumed by the mental features, because what you do as an agent, I take to be like what choices you make are just going to refer to what kinds of cognitive decisions you make. That's just under the category of cognition, as far as I understand.
Okay, I would say like if I'm walking, right, then walking is one of my capabilities. That is not a mental capability. This is like a physical capability.
Well, now I'm struggling to distinct walking from growing fingernails. Are you saying like it just has to be a slightly more conscious thing that you do? Because I could say like there are capabilities that the human will have that are somewhat conscious, like breathing, for example. Maybe the human breathes different from the zebra in some way, but is that really something that's going to make the difference for you?
No, because both can breathe, right? I mean,
But the
I would
breathing
say
is
the things
different.
that you could.
In the same way that you're
Breathing is
saying
different,
walking,
so?
but the zebra can walk. The zebra just walks differently.
Yeah. Then both have the same capability.
Okay. Yeah. So as long as it's vaguely the same, like it doesn't have to be the same exact type of breathing or same exact type of walking, right?
No.
As long as it's vaguely the same.
Yeah.
Okay, then. So yeah, going back to the original example, we would take the baby in question and say they're not going to have greater cognitive faculty than the zebra. They're going to have the same cognitive faculties as the zebra when they grow up, right? Would you say that it's okay to kill them? Let the lion eat them, I mean?
I would say yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's a view. Go ahead. No,
Yeah,
no,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
in the end, right? I say, well, I have the standard of like capabilities, and you're saying, well, you have the choice between a lion and something that has less capabilities than a lion. That's basically set up, right? Then I would say, okay, then the lion wins because that's my thing. If you think that view is absurd, right? Then you think that there ought something. Is there something special about humans? Like, I don't know how you would then, when you say my notion is absurd, so that I don't categorize based on species, it's to me it's irrelevant whether it's a member of the human species. If you say that is absurd, then you would say the non-absurd view would be to stipulate some moral difference or some moral relevance between something that is category human and something that is category animal or non-human animal, right?
But I see a bigger problem in the
Well,
view, right?
well, wait. If you don't mind, PkD, I'd like to respond. So,
Yeah.
those actually would not have been any of my responses. And in fact, I don't think there's a distinction between humans and animals, but I do think there is a distinction between those who are predating and those who are getting predated on. I don't think that anyone thinks that if you're more mentally capable, or if you're more capable in general, whatever that would mean, than the creature you're predating on, then it's okay to predate on them. And here's a very simple example. Let's say that there's another human that has a lower IQ than me, and I just have more capabilities than them, right? Almost everyone would say it is not good if I go and predate on that person because I'm the attacker and they're just defending themselves. And so there's a relationship there. And vice versa, if that person was attacking me, they would say the same, but in reverse. They'd say, I'm justified in defending myself, and they are not justified in attacking me, and they should not be attacking me, right? So the thing that people are going to care about is not the capabilities so much as the negative, positive right distinction, right?
Yeah.
The right to attack someone is a positive right. The right to not be attacked is a negative right, and people value negative rights much more. This is not even controversial. So I would say that people would say your view is absurd. It's not about it being human. It's about the fact that it's being predated on, and you're saying that they deserve to be attacked because they're, or I mean, I don't have to use a word like deserve since I heard you're an error theorist, that people desire for it to be attacked because it's less capable. It's just not what most people are going to say.
But what? So you would say there's some, how would you say, is a moral wrong done by predation, right?
Oh yeah, vast majority of cases, yeah.
So you would say that, for example, would you say the tiger does something wrong?
Yeah, of course.
Doesn't that mean that we ought to stop that?
Oh, I think so, yeah, of course.
Do you think that the majority would agree that we should stop all predation in nature?
Oh, I think that they would agree that we should stop most predation in nature if they introspected, like you talked about before. I think a lot of people haven't thought about the issue because it's actually a complex issue involving some moving parts that they may not be familiar with. And indeed, I do think that people show signs of intuitions against predation, because I've seen some research on people watching nature documentaries and how they react when they see like a baby penguin get scooped up by a hawk. A lot of people really, as you might say, root for the penguin in the same way that in a movie they root for the protagonist. They don't seem to like when those creatures get predated on. Sometimes they cover their eyes, they get uncomfortable, they say, let's change the channel. A lot of people seem to exhibit intuitions of such a thing. And as far as I've gathered in my own investigations from asking people, you know, if they think predation's okay, for those who say it's okay, they seem to give answers that they're not very comfortable with or that lead to contradictions. So yeah, I actually think that there's good reason to believe that people actually do prefer to stop predation.
But that seems to me to be, I don't know. I mean, wouldn't that mean, like, if we would actually do that, right? So you would say we should actively try to eradicate predation from nature, right? Wouldn't that be some issue for like nature?
Third order predation.
Are you talking about a pragmatic issue of if you mess up the food chain, maybe there will be some catastrophic environmental consequence, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excluding. We're excluding that for a second because we're talking about the principle of the matter. Because look, if killing the predators somehow led to more suffering for the prey, which by the way is not the case, we could get into the empirics on that. But let's just say hypothetically it would lead to more suffering for the prey species. Well, then we could still say that people are against predation, but they're even more against this other thing that's scarier than predation, and they're just picking between two evils, you know. But that's just not the interesting thing. The interesting thing is if killing predators didn't result in this sort of background effect of there being more suffering
Yeah.
to the prey species, would people be in favor of stopping the predators from killing these creatures? And I think the answer would be a resounding yes. Sorry, PkD, were you trying to get something in there?
Yeah, like on the earlier point, but I want to let him respond to that first if he wants to, because I want to bring it back a bit.
I would you would talk. I would have to think about that, right? So just for the understanding, like my why I argue for capabilities, and I'm not too firm on that, right? Is I argue based on the capability approach, right? And because in my understanding, this is something that I would use, for example, to argue in societies for rights, and that's also what I would use to argue for animal rights, right? And I think that's I would use that as like the pragmatic notion. I don't know how we did that predator view. Sounds interesting.
Like, look, if we go back a bit to the baby case, you're agreeing you are fine with the lion eating the human baby, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, that was funny how you agreed. But my question would be, how about if it was a human killing the human baby? You also wouldn't object to that?
Well, I would object to that, but if I don't know what the issue is to me that if you take other people into consideration, right? If you take the baby into consideration and the baby has a family and all of that, right? The killing of the baby influences also the living of the other people, right?
But
And
it's true
it seems to me that this seems to me what we intuit in our like what to me what seems to be like muddying up our judgment, because I would say in an isolated case, right, I would still pick I would still say you should not kill the murderer, right? Like if we were only 3 people, maybe if maybe only if he wants to kill me afterwards, right? But I would still protect the majority of capabilities. I don't know why you're saying contradiction. It's just like me applying
if you
I
let me
value.
speak, explain it to you very quickly. So look, the capabilities of the baby king being killed by the lion and by the human is the same, right? And when you were asked what's the difference between the gazelle and the human, you said capabilities, but your view is
Yeah.
inconsistent with that trait
No.
along different hypotheticals. Nothing else being different, because the capabilities, which is the decisive factor, is same. So I'm saying you need to add something into that.
What? I always side with the side with more capabilities. What are you saying? What do you say I contradict myself?
I'm saying the capabilities of the baby are the same in the lion case and in the human case.
Yeah, and in both cases, I would say let them kill the baby.
Oh, but you said
Oh,
you
wait. So you would actually let the adult human kill the baby?
If my option was to kill him, or him letting him kill the baby in an right. If we have like some idealist version, and we're not considering that the baby has some family and they might suffer, and then we have to make all this
No, let's say
calculation
it's a
on their
baby.
capabilities.
Let's say it's a baby in an orphanage, and there's like some guy who really wants to kill this baby because it'll, bring him some pleasure. He likes hearing babies scream before they die, right? And he's going over to kill this baby, right? And you're on a rooftop with a sniper because you were enlisted to some military operation, and you just notice this guy approaching this baby, and you see this and you could stop it by sniping him. You're telling me that you would not prefer to stop him? You would prefer to let him kill the baby? Because that would be tremendous if you just really let him kill the baby. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah, but what the baby would be, right, is for me is the equivalent of a pig, right? Or not a pig. Everybody who kills pigs should die. No, other animal, right? If you have some gazelle, what you're telling me is all you have is like you have this gazelle that looks like a baby, right? And if I ask somebody, well, you have this thing that is identical to gazelle, but it just looks like a baby, right? It just has this specific code. Then we would say, it seems to me that our intuition would say, no, we would protect the human. We wouldn't allow somebody to kill the human just because they killed the baby-looking gazelle.
I'm not sure where we got it's.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we got it's just a gazelle that looks like a baby. We could actually just use a human baby, right? Just a regular human baby. And this human baby just has like, when they grow up, they're going to have an IQ of like 98, and this guy has an IQ of 102. He's got slightly more capability even when the baby becomes an adult, right?
No, just like you doesn't change your capability.
Well, I mean, I don't know what other stuff is in there, but let's just say this baby has less capability than this guy. Like, look, you agree that from one human to another, there's not the same capabilities. Like people who sing at American Idol or something, or I don't know if there's like Germany Idol, but they have more capability than me in the sense that they could sing better. I can't do that. I'm not a good singer, right?
But that's a difference in degree. That's not a difference in kind. You can sing, you can't sing good. That's the that's not a. They don't have more capability in the regards of singing than you have.
Okay, look, I don't know what you mean by degree, because now you might be muddying the water so much that animals have all the same capabilities of humans, but just to a different degree. But let's try to use an example like a blind person. Let's say it's a blind baby. This baby's blind. They have no degree of eyesight, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that then it's okay for this guy to kill the baby?
No, because when you, because I would say, well, even though the baby can't see, it might still have like it still has capabilities that it could. Fuck.
Well, you agree it has less capabilities than this guy that's going to kill the baby, right?
I don't know how I would say that.
Well, you don't know how you feel about it? Well, that by the way would form a contradiction, because now you're saying you do and do not know if you would privilege something with more capabilities to kill the thing with less capabilities. Because in the other case, you said you do know you'd be in favor of it. Now you're not. Now you don't know if you're in favor of it. So that's a contradiction. But go ahead, PkD.
I just wanted to point that out, which you've pointed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good hypothetical. I like the hypothetical. Yeah.
So do you agree that there is a contradiction on the view?
There's a contradiction on the view.
Your view.
Well, I would say it's not. How would I say that?
Well, the contradiction that Fallen outlined.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know because like because you point out something that I've never thought about. I don't know how I would say that.
I was thinking on
Well, yeah,
names.
but the contradiction is not on like some subconscious part of your mind. I'm saying the contradiction have been verbalized from your mouth. The words were said,
Oh, yeah.
I do know I would prioritize the more capability creature. And then later it was
Oh, yeah.
said, you don't know whether you'd prioritize the greater capability creature.
Oh yeah, I would say is like, so what I would say is like there's obviously some issue in my understanding of what I'm of the view, right? I don't know, because like I would I
Well,
don't
that's
know
entailed.
exactly what.
But that's an entailment from anyone I
Yeah.
extract a contradiction from. It's not that they're simultaneously having and not having the brain state. It's obvious that there's, some sort of misaccounting in their view that led to the contradiction. But that doesn't make it not a contradiction. Otherwise, there's no such thing as contradictory views.
Yeah, what I would just wanted to say, I don't know if the principle itself, right, like the capability thing is like to be given up. I would say I wouldn't know how I would answer your hypothetical, right? I don't. I would still hold. I would still try to hold to my view, right? Because I don't like. I'm not that expert on those matters. I've never thought about your example.
Well, look, there's only a couple options here, right?
Mhm.
You either say,
Yep.
yes, it is okay for him to kill the baby. There wouldn't be a contradiction anymore if you did that, but there was a contradiction in the past. Or you can say, it's not okay for him to kill the baby, and there will be a contradiction. And that's the only two options.
Yeah, correct. But I'm not saying that they're that I don't need to adapt my view, right? I would just express that the question is where I would change it.
Okay. But what PkD is wanting you to acknowledge is that, at least for now, there's a contradiction, an unresolved one.
That's right, yeah.
Because look, you may update your view in the future and your answers change.
Mhm.
But for now, he just wants to get clear that with this current state of answers, there's a contradiction.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, I'll tell you something a little unrelated. I personally, think that anything other than a no to that question would be fucking deranged. Like, I would say it's absolutely not my moral preference or any, upstanding citizen's moral preference to let him kill the baby. Everyone would say that is fucked. We want to stop him, right?
I agree. I would I would say that is true. I just saying, like, I've never heard such kind of like hypotheticals. I argue the other way around, right? I'm not. To me, it seems I use capability because that's in the social science we really use that. It's really good, right? And that is a method of like justifying rights and laws and all of that, right? And I just wanted to try to expand that, because that's what I usually use when I argue for animal rights or something, right? That would be my approach.
Well, I think with you, it's going to be a
Never heard
good
of, like-
idea to start from human rights first before we go into animal rights, since you are like you have an unresolved position whether or not it's okay for a human to kill a baby if the baby was like disabled.
Yeah, on like rights, like on how we do rights, that's a different topic. There are certain things that would be, yeah.
So you
that
currently realize what...
that we would enshrine in certain rights or something that wouldn't align with my ethics, because I have certain considerations to take into account when we do rights and stuff.
So who is right? Current human rights are right, or you right?
In what sense?
Well, I mean, currently, if somebody were to kill like a disabled baby, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's like universally like condemnable, and we have like really strict laws against that. It wouldn't be even an open question whether or not we would discuss the ethics on that. But for you, it's like an open question. So I'm asking you, are you right, or the universal human rights are right? Because currently you are against them as it stands.
I'm against them.
Yeah,
No, I would say no. I would say, like, if we are given the options, right? Given if I have to choose a human over an animal, then then we would have some issue, right? But otherwise, what my maxim would be the maximization of like capabilities, right? The maximization of capabilities would mean not only to not kill humans, it would also mean to not kill animals.
Following, could you
like
track
if
the last bit?
Maybe when he says maximize capabilities, he means maximize protection of creatures with a very large range of capabilities. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm just saying, if you have, so when we talk about which laws should we imply in like a society, right? When you ask me whether I agree with the human rights, right? You are agreeing. You're asking me whether I think it should be the case that it should be forbidden to kill humans, even if that human is a disabled person, right?
It currently is, I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that is okay. That is good. Yeah, we shouldn't, like, it's not okay to kill people.
Yeah, but I'm saying your ethical view contradicts that, right? Because you're unsure if that baby ought to be saved, right? In deflated sense, the ought here is deflated. I'm not begging the question on the error theory. But I'm saying you're against human rights at the moment. Do you acknowledge that as well?
No, because I'm not saying that when we say human right, we're saying nobody should be killed, right? When we have rights in the sense of like societal rights, that means that if you violate that right, you get punished, right? So I don't see where I'm against such a thing.
Like if, like, look, I think if like a human kills like a disabled baby, I think that's like punishable in the hypothetical described by Fallen. Don't you agree with that, or like we should punish the killer? Yeah.
We should have laws against that, but that would as I said, the case described in from Fallen would be something where I would have to think more about in that sense. But even if I would say, well, it's ethically right for that person to kill a baby, I would still say, or to not kill the killer, right? Basically, even though that might be ethically right, I would say the killer should still be punished.
Okay.
Because the killer did also the killer did something that minimizes capabilities, right? And we punish people, in my understanding, we punish people that minimize capabilities. So the killer should be punished, but you shouldn't kill the killer.
So do you agree that the person who kills the zebra or the gazelle should also be punished?
Yeah, I would agree. I would say it should be right. It should be law that you are not allowed to kill animals. That's what I would argue from the get-go.
But you wouldn't, like, if you were put in the situation, you wouldn't stop any of them if you could.
I would stop them if I could. I wouldn't shoot them over it.
Okay. I see. So now the
right?
view is like, you want to stop, but would you stop the lion?
Wait,
If
PkD,
you-
before even going to that, like, why not ask, like, so wait, you wouldn't shoot the guy who's going to kill the baby? Because he just said, I wouldn't shoot them over it. Like, look, if you had to shoot him to stop him from killing the innocent baby, would you do it? Or rather than would you do it, would it be something that you'd prefer for someone to do?
Right now, I would say if I apply my system consistently, I would say I would not shoot them. I would let them shoot the baby.
But do you want to apply this espoused system consistently? Like, I just want to know whether or not you think they should be shot. Like,
No, they
Or-
shouldn't be shot.
they shouldn't. Okay, yeah,
shouldn't.
that's what I take to be a pretty hefty reductio. I do think that is out of line with most people's values, without question.
Okay.
Yeah, think about school shooting situations. Like the guys, we have a weapon and we see the school shooter, we have no other way to stop them. And he goes in there and he's about to shoot like the kids. And I would say, yeah, it's the right choice to take out the killer. He is the one initiating predation.
Yeah, I would say that's the same, right?
You would say
I would say the
you would
same.
favor
If he goes into a school and he has normal human children and he's not like blasting, right? Then he should also be stopped, right?
What about, by the way, I don't appreciate you saying disabled kids are not normal. I think that's rude of you. But how about if those kids were disabled? Should we shoot the killer? My view on
say
that.
normal. Wait. I say normal in the sense of like not a gazelle that looks like a human or not like they have the mind of a gazelle. I'm saying in the sense of just if I pick 100 children, what happens most? That would be the normal, right?
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
that's what I
saying
said that I don't.
a non-modified,
Yeah,
a non-modified child.
that's fine, and that's what I say I
Yeah.
don't appreciate. But the question is, what if the killer is shooting those kids who are not normal according to your standard of normality? Would you favor shooting the killer if there were no other option?
Then I would be epistemically uncertain. In such situations, I wouldn't know.
Oh wow. Holy shit, I was about to say a profanity on Eugene's stream. Like,
Really?
Jesus Christ, man.
I mean, what you're saying is right. I'm saying, look,
Go ahead.
I'm saying I evaluate certain actions based on the expected consequence. And you're giving me a case in which I wouldn't be sure what the consequence is, right? I would be sure about the state of the world, not the ethical system. If you would tell me the exact state of the world, then I would say, yeah, I would be easily able to decide, right? If you say in one case there's 99 capability and the other is 100, right? Then obviously the 100. I would always decide the bigger number, right? But the issue is that you're pointing at a case where I don't have epistemic certainty about the consequence, but my system works on the consequence.
I mean,
You're
look,
not showing that the system can't be applied. You're just showing that there's that you can have situations where there's epistemic uncertainty.
I mean, go ahead. Keep softening the blow more, as if it does anything for you at this point. I'm just baffled, and trust me, I have
What?
so many debates with meat eaters. Nobody affirmed that they are unsure whether or not they should stop fucking serial killer walking into a school and shooting disabled kids. None of them said that. That's wildly out of accord with any values. That's even like slave owners and those people would have better views, probably. I just don't have to say anything at that point. I mean, Fallen, if you want to elucidate further.
I mean, yeah, it seems like the point is you saying, oh, there's this epistemic limitation. I don't have access to like the facts of the capabilities of the beings in question, right? Just know that that's not helping. And the reason it's not helping, PkD is pointing out, is because the fact that it hinges on whether or not those capabilities are in place in the first place, that's the thing that he takes to be a severe reductio. Like the idea that, oh, if it turned out that the capabilities were lower, then you would say, yeah, now this is okay. That is already a severe reductio as far as he's concerned. So it doesn't actually change anything to say, well, it's going to depend. I don't have access to these facts. Like, just imagine if someone asked me, hey, is it okay to rape a woman? And then I said, I don't know. And they're like, what? And it's like, well, that's not, me saying I don't know is not a problem, because the reason I can't answer is because of this epistemic limitation. I just don't know if I could get away with it. And it's as if like whether or not I could get away with it is going to determine whether or not the action in question is okay. That's the problem. And so
the question is whether it's absurd or not absurd, right?
Yeah, I mean,
when we say okay, we mean in accordance to like the majority, right?
Yeah. In alignment with common sense norms, that sort of thing. But yeah, what PkD is pointing out is the fact that what this hinges on is this fact of the capabilities in the first place, and that alone can change your answer. That is the reductio, is what he's saying.
Okay. I don't know.
And I would agree with him, by the way.
Okay. I would say, like, from my understanding, if I like, when we go back to the how we come up with this absurd, I would have to think about this, right? My analysis till this point was always what we value, right? I was thinking about the what do we value, right? What are the things that we really care about, right? And it seems to me that this the underlying principle of those human intuitions are capabilities. But I don't know if I would say that it's like predator prey distinction.
Oh, I'll also just disagree with that separate claim. I don't think capabilities, as you've outlined them, which are things that aren't just mental capabilities, are what people care about. For example, I don't think that, people care about, morally whether or not someone has eyesight. I don't think people care morally how many pull-ups someone can do, right? If I took a copy of myself and I made that copy of myself have less muscle mass, right? That copy of myself would not be able to perform as many pull-ups. It would be less capable, that copy of me, at performing pull-ups.
That's not how I would, but that's not how I would say, like,
I know you said before, degree of capability, but to be honest, that's kind of incoherent, because when you say degree of capability, as if to say like there's some quality and some non-zero quantity of it, it's not clear how an animal under that vague conception has any lack of capabilities compared to us. It must have all the same capabilities, because as long as it has some vaguely similar action it can perform, then it has all our capabilities.
Yeah, and then we would discuss whether it can do some vaguely similar function, right? I don't think that the tapeworm can do many vaguely similar functions than we.
I think it can, but your your conception of vaguely, like, whatever you mean by degree of function, it's just so wishy-washy. I can't make anything of it. I'm just being honest. Like, I mean, for example, I don't know if you would say that someone else has a capability I don't have if they can lift a door, for example, or a refrigerator. Okay, let's say I can't lift a refrigerator, but someone else can. Would you say that they are capable of something that I'm not capable of?
That's how would I say that? I think I would say.
I think this is kind of wishy-washy, to be honest, but go ahead.
I agree. Maybe I like, not to be like mean, also not like that. I would maybe revise how I would say it. I would say they would have they would have some capability, right? They would have some capability that you don't. Sound is back. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So that. Yeah.
We
So if you then want to say they do have some capability, then using the same semantics in the original statement of, okay, so anything that has more capabilities, more morally valuable, that statement would be false. Now you have to say there's certain kinds of capabilities they would have to have that I don't have. Maybe you want to say mental capabilities. Like they have to have, you know, some significantly higher level of consciousness or responsibility, character, that I don't know, something like that.
But why do you think that this means that I need to specify the capability, right?
Yeah, because
Because
earlier you said the statement, if they have more capability, then they have, you know, the greater right when attacking someone, right? But now you're saying that being able to lift a refrigerator would qualify perhaps as a greater capability, or being able to see while someone else is blind qualifies as a greater capability. And presumably you're not okay with someone who can lift a refrigerator killing someone, shooting someone who can't lift a refrigerator.
yeah, but there would again be the issue, right? Like this is there would be certain situations where maybe would say yes, maybe not. But I agree that would be like a very weird conclusion of my.
Well,
of
when
how
you
I,
say certain situations, if you mean like, when you say certain situations, if you mean like killing this person is going to cure cancer worldwide, that's obviously not the type of situation I'm talking
no,
about.
I mean whether I would say like, look, this person, even though it's not that person is not able to lift the refrigerator, right? They could have a higher number of capabilities or something, right? Then again, in order to evaluate that situation, I would need to know the number of capabilities, right?
Let's
And
just
then I
say
would
they.
say that I would
Let's just
apply
say.
the standard strictly then again.
Yeah, let's just say the overall number of capabilities is less. Like they can't lift a refrigerator. They could do almost all the other same things. This guy also, you know, knows how to read German. The original person doesn't, or something. The original person knows the rules of Monopoly, but the other guy doesn't. Like, and then you want to say, oh yeah, it seems like he has more capability, so he could just go ahead and kill the person. Like, are you really telling me that that's what it's going to turn on? Because that's just kind of crazy. Let's be honest.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if I'm just saying, if I apply what I like, this goes from my understanding of what it seems to me that human value, and of course you disagree with it. Then I would say if you have like such a case, then I would have to bite the bullet, right? I would say, yeah, okay, you might point to some ridiculous number of capabilities that one person has less, and if you have the chance to save that person by killing the bigger amount of capabilities, then I would say you still shouldn't do it. You should just punish the guy who did it, right?
Yeah, that's just strongly out of line with people's values, as is evident by the laws that countries seem to have selected for. Strongly out of line.
I think that, yeah, I would make a distinction there because I don't think that the laws directly are a reflection, right?
They don't need to be directly a reflection.
Yeah, but you have competing things, right? You might say, well, they allow for self-defense, right? But that might be because they value themselves, or like they value the situation in which there are some pragmatic issues that go into those laws, right? Other than just what our understanding of an ideal world would be.
Right, but do you remember what I said at the beginning, which is the laws don't need to reflect exactly the values. If there's some law that says something like, you know, it's wrong to throw babies in a microwave, you will get punished if you do this, you understand that that is incredibly strong evidence that the population has desires against this sort of thing. We can easily make very strong inferences about what the common values are in the population. Like if you're actually attempting to inject doubt into the idea that what you said is strongly out of line with people's values. That's just like, I mean, I can only call it deranged. Like, that's crazy.
Fine. I would say, like, from my understanding, right, when I think about what people value, I would say, like, they have some idea of, like, consequences, right? What you're saying is that the question would be which kind of acts, right, the people have issues with, whereas what I would say is, like, what kind of state would they prefer, right? That's why I would argue more. That's why I would see it on the side. That's why I think the relevant part is the consequence, whereas you say the relevant part is, like, on which side of the negative positive right you are, right?
Oh, of course. Our laws clearly indicate that, like with self-defense, for example. And by the way, in terms of, in terms of this idea that maybe there's laws against this so that people can get punished afterward, but not that it's permissible to kill them to stop them from performing the action. That's also just evidently false by the fact that police do have rights at certain times to use lethal force to prevent certain things from happening. Because, of course, that's just something we need for a society to function properly.
I agree, but there I would say this is based on, like, some pragmatic notion, right? Rather than some desired, that there are two competing desires here that the society has, right? One, what is if you have one given case, what would you prefer? And then the question, what would you prefer in the societal case, right?
What you're saying just agrees with me. Because, look, what you're saying, but there's this pragmatic issue of if we don't do this, there's going to be this consequence. But the very consequence is the person that the killer was trying to kill dying. That's the consequence. Yes, there is that pragmatic issue, if that's what you mean by pragmatic. But that's the very value we're talking about. Like,
that's not what I would. That's not what I think when I say there are pragmatic considerations to take into account, right? Because I think there might be there are certain instances, right, where people would evaluate this given isolated situation, right? But then when we in a certain way, but then when the question is what law should the society employ, it might be the case that we wouldn't employ we shouldn't, it wouldn't be reasonable or smart or whatever to employ a law that would try to enforce that ethical standard, right? But to make some pragmatic consideration, right? Because if we say, like, certain how
I understand what you're saying already.
Yeah.
But look, if you don't have some plausible pragmatic issue other than the case of preventing the person from dying that the killer is trying to kill instead of the police stopping them, then you have to pose what you think that pragmatic issue is. Otherwise, I don't know what reason we have to believe it's that.
Oh yeah, just a deterrent, for example, right?
Just what?
Just a deterrent, right? To reduce the amount of people doing it. If the chances to get killed while doing it, then people generally don't try to do it, right?
Oh, that's not any more of a deterrent than killing them after, or even doing something worse than killing them after, like torturing them after. That would be worse than killing. It seems like the killing is just something that is used to prevent it from happening. And by the way,
I would just say I would have pragmatic notions against, like, killing them afterwards, and some pragmatic notions against torturing them.
But you don't have one against killing them before?
No.
What's the explanation for that?
Because I don't think that how would I say that?
I think we got to be honest at some point. We got to be honest at some point and say, like, no, it's because they want to not let the person die that's getting attacked. Like, at what point do we just admit that? Like, it seems so obvious. I don't know why we're denying such a basic thing here. I didn't know that was controversial.
but then we go again into like we again have to do this calculation, right? Where you just say, because right,
Wait, let me
I
make sure
understand.
you remember
Yeah.
what we're talking about. What we're talking
Yes.
about is whether or
Yeah,
not
go on.
other people have the same values as you. And I'm
Yeah.
just saying, PkD brought the obvious evidence earlier of, well, look, there's these laws in place that seem to indicate that if lethal force is the only way to stop them from hurting someone, then it's permissible to be used if you really don't see any other way to do it, right? That is good evidence, I would say, for people having this value that it's okay to stop attackers to
Oh yeah,
defend the
I would
defendee.
one of the things that I might say would be like, well, if you have somebody that is killing, that seems he goes already against a certain norm, right? And the potential is that he kills even more, right? And then you are allowed to shoot him to prevent the reasonably expected murders that he will commit in the future, right? And you can do this in the only in the instance, but after you caught him, you shouldn't like torture him or you shouldn't kill him, because the state shouldn't kill people. Then you have like too pragmatic. It seems to me that there would be some pragmatic notion, but I agree that I bet I would have to really think about that, whether I would hold that.
Well, wait. Right now, what we're not talking about is your values. We're talking about society's values and whether or not society desires to kill someone before that person kills someone because they value the defendee more than the attacker, right? Like what I'm saying is, look, people
Yeah.
would prefer for the defendee to survive than the attacker to successfully kill. That's all that's being said. This other stuff about whether it's okay to torture them after, I don't think people have those intuitions that we should torture people afterward.
Yeah. Oh well, some people do, right? I
Not
don't know.
moral
I would have,
intuitions; those are like personal desires. But yeah,
yeah. I don't know. I would have to revise like how I would see what people value, right? How I would say. Would you say it's only based on like this defendee attacker delineation?
well, that's one very important thing to people. There
Okay.
are other things people can value. For example, if I attack a robot, no one's gonna care about the robot if the robot's not conscious, right? There has
Yeah.
to be something they care about on the other side in the first place. But I'm just saying that is a big deal. People care more about protecting defendees than attackers.
And okay. What would we do if like how would we decide if when two of those convictions collide? So for example, if I see somebody being what is it? Somebody attacking a robot, right? Oh no, the other way around. Wait. Fuck. Where did I say that? Yeah, how just out of curiosity, when those two collide, so when I have something that a very conscious actor attacks the non-conscious actor, right? How would I know that I should use the conscious one over the attacker and attackee attacked?
Are you just saying, like, in a
Delineation?
situation where there's, someone that's notably less conscious than the attacker, how do I determine whether to let the attacker murder them or whether
Yeah,
to
no,
defend the
so for
defendee?
example, yeah, for example, let's just say somebody attacks a robot, right? Then that person with consciousness is the attacker, but there's a thing without consciousness that gets attacked. How would you
Mhm.
then decide whether which one to apply?
Oh, just by looking at whether or not the thing they're attacking is even valuable to begin with. How much value does it have? Well,
Okay.
the robot, in terms of its value outside of monetary, is very low. Almost nothing, probably. It's like the equivalent to a rock. And so people would just say, yeah, let the attacker attack the robot.
And so what people would value is like conscience. Do you think there are other those type of things that that have like value?
In the moral sense, not really. They might say, oh, this person has value in terms of like he's an asset to the company. This guy's very smart. He's going to help me in debate or something like that. But I don't think they're going to, see anything besides their level of mental facts as being very more. I don't think they'll see anything besides any of like these mental qualities as very morally relevant. No.
And if we had the case between to choose between like a human and like a cow, right? One of them has to die. What do we do?
Oh, like if there's someone attacking a cow? Yeah, me personally, I would say that human should be stopped.
No, I mean like a trolley problem. On one side there's a cow, on the other side there's a human. What do you choose?
Well, who's on which side?
What? One is on the left, the other's on the right.
Yeah, but where is the train currently on? Because that matters. With the trolley problem, the whole point of it is the train is already headed on some certain path.
I'm just meaning like if we had the so if you had the option to choose between, right? Oh no, let's say the trolley problem. So let's say it's on the rail. Let's say it's on the rail to the cow. Would you switch?
No.
If it's on the trail to the human, would you switch?
No.
Okay, that's consistent. Don't you think that would be
I think
absurd?
the question you want to ask is, let's say the train is going to run both of them over unless I intervene, right? And if I choose to intervene, I can either save the cow or the human. Maybe you want to ask something like that because you don't want the issue of the trolley problem flipping thing going on, right?
Yeah, I was just for like trolley problem, just throwing in like two options, right? But just for first thing, wouldn't you think it's wouldn't you say that most people would not agree with like when it goes towards the human to not switch? Don't you think that's an absurd?
Oh, before introspection, yes. After introspection, no.
Okay.
And the reason why is because if we put a disabled human on the tracks, I don't think they would flip the lever to then kill the disabled human. There's also other things that are problematic with the trolley problem. People have bad intuitions about it because I've seen research that shows that people change their answer if instead of flipping a lever, you have to push someone off of a bridge. So I don't really think that example is going to be one that we could use as like some strong appeal to people's intuitions because people seem to have unthought out intuitions about that particular situation. That's why it's considered an interesting problem in philosophy. But the more interesting one is just they're both going to get run over and you can only save one. Which one would you save?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to ask that. Oh, what's up?
Well, I had like, unless you want to finish that, I think there is something else left to be discussed on the view, but maybe you want to finish that.
I'll just close this point and say, if what you were interested in is if I could only save one, which one would I save? Well, if we're in a pragmatic world, I would actually pick the animal because the human might not be vegan. But jokes aside, right? Let's just say there's like a vegan on one side of the track and an animal on the other, and they're both going to get run over by the train unless I cut one loose and I only have time to cut one of them. Yes, then I'll save the human, of course, because the human does have more value than the cow, the vegan human anyway.
You mean based on their cognition?
Based on their cognition, yeah. I mean, basically.
Why would you say that one cognition is like better?
It's not about better, it's about the level of cognition is more valuable to me. And the reason why is because they have a greater depth of experience. Their experience is more complex. They have presumably some greater capacity for like emotions, feelings, pain, all that stuff. There are cases though where I may actually even pick the cow. Like for example, it could be that there's a child and an adult on the tracks, and I pick the child. And the reason why is because the child, being more innocent, is going to struggle more to come to terms with their death than the adult will. Maybe the adult can like tough it out and they are comfortable with accepting their death, you know?
Yeah.
And analogously with the animal, they may be more innocent and they can't come to terms with their death and they're just, you know, scared about the situation, kind of like a child. But if we exclude all of those and we just have like an adult and a cow, I mean, I would hate to let either of them die, but I would pick the vegan human over the cow, I suppose.
Okay. Do you think okay? You would say via introspection, if you would like, if it would be a non-vegan, you would run over the non-vegan, and after introspection, people would agree, right?
Vegan and non-vegan. Oh, are you presenting a new situation?
No. I mean, you have a cow and a non-vegan. In that case, you would like.
Oh, a cow and a
flatten the
non-vegan. Yeah.
non-vegan.
Okay. So yeah, in this case, now this requires much more nuance. But yes, I would actually say that it is better to save the cow over the non-vegan. Yes.
If you look at rights violations only, they are going to be, of course, pragmatical concern for you, right?
Yeah, like this is not to say that I think that it would generate overall good if we were to go out and kill like random humans who are not vegan. But in principle, in a vacuum, it does seem to be the morally better choice. For the same reason that if instead of a non-vegan human, we had a non-Schmigan human, and a non-Schmigan human is someone who, instead of just eating animals, they also eat disabled people, right? People who are cognitively matched animals, that people would all probably say the same thing. They'd say, yeah, no, we should save the animal over that person. That person is going to hurt animals and disabled humans, and that's bad. That person should not be allowed to continue to live.
You could just say a human who is killing like dogs, even in this current world, right?
Yeah.
Like people are gonna be outraged, I guess.
And when you
That's a
say
good
like
example.
wouldn't you say you have like some, let's say you have the pragmatic question, it's it's a non-vegan, but you after you cut him loose, you get an hour with him, and you might turn him vegan. What would you do?
When you say
have the
might, it's
chance
going to
of him to-
depend on the probability.
Okay, what probability do you need? 10%, 50? Like,
I mean, I haven't appraised this, but 50 is too low, I would say. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, because this is me risking, just imagine the trade equalized case of someone who only has a 50% chance of being converted off of killing disabled people. That's not good enough. I need something
80,
greater than that.
80, I would say, sounds good.
80? With 80? Do I hear lower? Okay. And how would you why would you decide on 80?
Mine would be higher, by the way, than 80. I would say like 97 or something. I don't know.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And again, if we have a case where people are eating disabled humans, or like PkD said, killing and eating dogs, that would cause a lot of people to say the same thing. They just haven't made the connection between disabled people and animals. A lot of people genuinely have false beliefs, by the way, about what the cognition of animals is. People say stupid things sometimes, like, oh, animals are just like these robots. They don't actually experience anything. They're just, quote, acting on instinct, whatever that means. They're just uneducated. They just have the facts wrong about what an animal experience is actually like.
Yeah, with that I would totally agree, yeah. Yeah, you brought some interesting points. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, ask yourself, like, if there was, someone who was killing and eating disabled children and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Would you say that you would let them live if you knew that letting them live would have a 50% chance of them not eating disabled children, but there's a 50% chance they'll go on and continue to kill a bunch of disabled children?
Oh, I also never thought about that.
Yeah, I think
I don't
you'd
think so.
probably,
I don't
if you
think
think
so,
about
right?
it though,
Yeah.
you'd probably say no, 50 is too low, right?
Yeah,
You'd be like, fuck
can-
that guy. He better be 100% on board.
I can feel your point. Kind of like because um if you're still up for it, because what would interest me now would be basically where we draw some practical differences, right? Like how we would like how that would reflect in like laws and all of that, right? Because
Uh,
in my understanding, like it seems to me, at least it seems to me, that one of the things that I would base or would come from my view would be like you're not allowed to murder, right? It should be illegal to murder, whether it be an animal, whether it be a human, right? But you would say that not only is it not okay for humans to not do this, but it's also not okay for like animals to do this, right? Like what would be the practical application of that?
yeah, the practical application is us making it legal for hunters to hunt predators but not prey species so that we can eliminate the horrid predation that's taking place in nature.
Okay.
Seems like a win for everyone since hunters really want to hunt so bad. It's like the only hobby they have, right? Well, now
But
they could get what they want. They could go save creatures from these mass murdering predators. And,
and okay.
the prey species gets what they want, right? They're not going to be attacked anymore by these horrific predators.
Okay. Would it be okay to eat them?
To eat the predators, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Would but we agree, right? Like the amount of hunters is not enough to stop like all predation, right? Like would you say we should do some like
Oh
we
no,
should
there's
go into
definitely enough.
to stop
Because
like
think about it. Prey species
all
are
predation in the
a much.
ocean?
Oh no, I'm not talking about the ocean. I'm talking about land animals. The ocean would require something different. But in terms of land creatures, you would need less hunters than we have now because prey species are much greater in numbers. Yet when hunters go out and hunt gazelle or something, as fucked up as it is, they actually lower the populations significantly. And there's much more gazelle than there are lions. So, of course, they could easily take out land creatures. Now, as far as the oceans are concerned, that might require some more advanced things because there's not really like the same kind of dynamic. The food chains in the oceans are much taller in the sense that there's like predators eating predators eating predator, and you'd have to separate between odd and even order predators, and you'd have to like account for all these things, and it's underwater. We're not water creatures, so we don't typically reside in the ocean. There's just like way more challenges, but that's a pragmatic issue, not a principal issue.
But also on like land, right? You wouldn't get rid of all land predation. Like all the insects eating other insects would be like, how would you get rid of those?
That's
Oh,
how
Do you say we should get rid of those?
well, okay, the should and the how are two different questions. Let's just go in order. So how that would be done, I'd imagine it's going to involve like some, biological advances, kind of like how we understood that we can eliminate mosquitoes by spreading a gene in them that makes it so that they can't reproduce, make them infertile, or make them unable to carry certain diseases. That's the type of solution I would imagine is going to be in place, which is a question for biologists and specialists, of course, not a philosopher. And as far as the more interesting question of should we, it depends on whether or not whatever those insects are predating on are conscious, for starters, because they're predating on other unconscious insects, for example. No, I don't think there's any reason to invest our effort into stopping that. But let's say that those insects are attacking things that we definitely know are conscious, like those. We have some ants that are crawling into the eye sockets of mammals and like eating them alive from the inside, just like a horrific death. Yeah, fuck those ants. We should kill them all.
Yeah, because in my view, I would say that even a bug has some form of conscience.
Well, it's not always the case. I've looked at the research, and most bugs are probably not conscious. And to whatever degree they might be, it's just going to be some amount that I would personally not care about at all. Like, imagine in terms of money, right? You say, look, I care about making money when I start a business, right? Yeah, it is true that you care about making money, but not all amounts of money are going to be worth your time. You'll say, it is important to me that I get this sale for $100, $10. I mean, I guess PkD can convert this to whatever it is in German currency. But if someone says, I will work a whole year and get 1 penny or something, like 1 single penny, someone's going to say, yeah, I don't care to work for that at all. Fuck that. It's a waste of time. And in the same way, what's up?
I would just say, like, if you would also say this towards a non-conscious baby.
Yeah, assuming that A, the baby has not been conscious before and is not going to regain consciousness, and B, there's not going to be some external concerns.
Like parents and such. Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Cool. I think we're good.
But so you would say, like, in terms of laws, right? Like you just say, like, okay, make hunting of predators legal. They should hunt those predators down, right? And you would say that you don't think that has some like negative influence on like the biosphere?
On the ecology of the environment? No, I actually don't think that. And the reason why is because the mechanism that people posit as to why it would have a negative effect on the environment is something about prey species overpopulating. For one, I don't actually think that that's going to take place if we get rid of lions or something, for example. And the reason is because I've looked at data where predators are introduced into an environment and it doesn't seem to significantly affect prey populations. So that's one thing. Another thing is, even if it did hypothetically affect prey populations, it's not clear that the prey's population increasing is some kind of problem for that environment. And to whatever complicated effects that people think are going to take place in these wild environments, I don't see why that environment wouldn't just generate a new balance of some sort surrounding the new meta of creatures that are now present in certain numbers. Just like in a video game, when something gets rebalanced, just to kind of give an intuition for this point, when there's a rebalancing of various items, some things are nerfed, some things are buffed in the video game, right?
Yeah.
We don't say, oh, the video game is it's a catastrophe. No, people just use new strategies now, and everything achieves a new, different balance.
Okay. Yeah, to that I don't know because what I know, like, you have like these I only know, it's a long time ago, that I read I think was a study about wolves. I think wolves and what was it? What was that prey?
Was it about a place
And
called Yellowstone in the U.S.?
I don't know. And I can
Well,
only
there
see
was.
I only saw like this like that you have like a shifted that basically the prey population was just shifted. It made the same curve, right? Like they behaved the same, so they were
I think you're talking about
correlated
Yellowstone.
with distance in time.
Yeah, you're probably talking about the Yellowstone study because that one involved wolves and elk. And yeah, there was originally in the first paper a report that there was a change in the prey population after the wolves were introduced, but that was before they had accounted for the confounders. One of those confounders was illegal poaching had gone up in that time. The other confounder was that the Yellowstone territory had changed insofar as there was human infrastructure built through the area, separating certain territories off, which affected the breeding patterns of the prey species in the area. Once they accounted for those confounders, they actually realized that it wasn't true that the wolves were making much of a difference.
Yeah, didn't the authors retracted that study themselves?
Yeah, I could post the quote.
Yeah.
That said, it wouldn't matter because this is all just like, empirical talk. This is less philosophy, more just like science, right? And as far as the science is concerned, though, if you're curious, I actually think we don't have good reason to believe that there would be some negative environmental effects. But I could introduce some philosophy here and say, let's say that there actually was some negative environmental effects. That would underdetermine whether it's wrong. For the same reason that I know that there would be good environmental effects to kill humans because humans contribute to climate change and environmental disaster far more than non-human animals. So if I suppose that in Africa, right, there was some predator killing a bunch of African children, like a lion or something, there was just tons of lions, coyotes, whatever. They're just killing children in Africa.
Yeah.
And I can go and kill those predators, right, to stop the predators from killing the children. But it turns out that those predators killing those children is somewhat reducing the procession of climate change and other negative environmental effects. I wouldn't say now I shouldn't shoot those lions because, oh, look, there's an environmental benefit to letting them cull off these little African children. No, I would say fuck the lions.
I agree, and in my understanding, like what the issue would then be, or what that is why the empirical claim matters, right? If you're saying there's no issue to those ecosystems, right, they would just adapt, then I would say, yeah, okay, you're fine. But under my understanding, that's the empirical understanding I got, I would expect a more dramatic shift of that environment that would like inflict damage on like a lot of conscious beings, right? Where I then would say, well, then I have this dilemma between like, on the one hand, I want to stop predation, but on the other hand, I want to like conserve consciousness. But if I don't know like what the empirical data on that is. I've never read
To me,
into
without even looking at the data, it should be pretty obvious that utility, for example, would go up a lot if we killed predators. And the reason that you could just be comfortable in making that claim without knowing the details of the empirics is that the suffering that takes place in nature is truly horrific. It's like hell. The things that happen in nature are like beyond people's imagination. Just the worst suffering imaginable. I've seen like videos of like baby elephants being eaten from like the front and like still being alive because the predators haven't like dug to their brain yet for hours, like days even. Just like the worst suffering imaginable, and just this baby elephant screaming, like, and that's just one of millions, billions of creatures in nature that are suffering because of this horrific predation cycle. Whatever the fuck the environmental effects are, I imagine would be utterly dwarfed by the prevention of this, predation. It's not even close to me.
I wouldn't be so comfortable with making that claim, I think. But as I said, I don't know what the effects per se would be, right? Like if we would imagine, like in my understanding, right? If you have like then the overpopulation of of a certain prey species, in my understanding, would mean that that food for that prey species, right, would reduce, and then you would have a lot of hunger in that prey species, and then a lot of those animals would die of hunger, which is also not like a very, very fine way to go, right? And then like I don't know, some predation seems really quick, some doesn't. There, I just don't know what like the empirical effect would be.
Yeah, so that's just not going to be a set of plausible mechanisms that seems to counteract the suffering going on in nature, because starvation takes place with predators present, and there's actually no reason to suspect that it would go up. If anything, starvation may very well go down because there's less competition for food among various creatures within the food chain. And also, it should be mentioned that one of the reasons creatures starve is because predators occupy certain regions that make it unsafe for that prey species to enter that area where the food is. It's like a purposeful strategy from predators. None of this really works. Like, the fact is, we know what the suffering level is in nature as it stands with predation, and the suffering level we know is quite limited if there's no predators, because the worst thing you can imagine is, oh, a bunch of prey species will starve for some short period of time, but then it's not as though that's viable for the prey species. So then there will just be some notable adaptations, both environmentally and species selectively, that would result in then there being some new balance, as was said, to where now there's no longer this starvation, as long as we maintain no predator cycles.
Okay, yeah. If that would be like, that's why I say, like, I don't. To me, I believe that you research this, right? Like, I'm not like doubting that you know this, but I have not researched this, so I would say I don't know it. If it would be the case, then I would say, yeah, then I would hold to the same law, right? Because it would even fulfill my standard then.
I'll go ahead and
have a practical difference.
Because I know what paper you were referencing before, I'll actually go ahead and just post the quote from the authors of that paper, just so I make sure that you agree, because there's a big misnomer on, you know, how killing predators would affect the population of prey species. And I think it might be useful just to show that. Here it is. I found it. I put it in side chat. So the most impact on elk population may actually be attributed to humans, not wolves, according to McNulty. As the Yellowstone elk migrate from the protected lands of the national park, they make their way into other areas in Montana where they're open for legal harvest, McNulty said. Thousands of elk were harvested by hunters, and as a result, humans contributed greatly to the reduction in population seen in 2004, along with a period of drought, he added. So that was another confounder. There was a drought when they were performing the measurements in the paper that you're probably thinking of. We know right out the gate it was not entirely due to wolves. Wolves had very little effect, at least early on. To attribute it all to wolves is completely unrealistic. It's a classic example of how saying something many times with enthusiasm can make it true regardless of what science says, Hobbes said. So the authors of the Yellowstone paper immediately are saying, no, it's not the wolves that were really making the difference here. It was hunters and a drought and stuff like that.
Well, at least early on, right? But yeah.
Well, they said especially early on, because the wolves had almost no effect early on, even when accounting for the confounders. And then maybe they had like some effect afterward.
Yeah. Like, as I said, I don't know like what the scientific consensus there is. Yeah.
That's fine. Either way, is like I've shown you, you know, what the real data on this is. And this is more of just science than the philosophy of the whole point. Like, look, you could just pause at a hypothetical and say, okay, let's say hypothetically there would be more suffering to prey, right?
Yeah.
Would you then let the predators be around? Still maybe no, because that could underdetermine the case, in the same way that in Africa there is starvation going on, right? And let's say that the starvation would increase to the point where maybe there would be slightly more suffering overall. I would still favor killing the predators that are eating these children alive, because it just so turns out that that involves a world of greater deontic violations, which I suspect many people can care a lot about. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe a pure utilitarian would say, okay, it seems like that world is slightly better. But that even the pure utilitarian would only be committed in some pragmatic sense.
Yeah, I was just like, with that, I was just trying to figure out what our difference in like theory means in like practice, right? I understand it's like you have to have some empirical considerations there. Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Because
Yeah.
like otherwise it
To
was,
me, yeah, I was just going to mention, like, to me, the moral of the story here is I think that people, after introspection, would be in favor of stopping the utterly horrific suffering that's taking place in nature.
okay. I would have to do introspection on that, but yeah.
Oh yeah, and also, yeah, also the thing you said before of it even being remotely likely that people would be in favor of letting the guy kill the baby who's blind.
Yeah.
No, I don't think anyone would take that view. I'll be honest with you. Like, literally no
Okay.
one.
Yeah. Okay. My like, do you have some? Because this is not really like, I'm more from the social philosophy side of things, right? Would you what type of like papers would you recommend, or like books or something for like this bioethics discussion?
Well, interesting you say that, because my friend is actually writing up something which is just in draft form right now. I might send that to you when it's done, and he'll be done with it soon. I'm just going to peer review it and stuff with him.
Yeah.
But that's something I'll probably send to you when it's complete. As far as books, I mean, I don't know if like there's been old books written by guys like Peter Singer back in the day. Maybe PkD might have more recommendations in that regard.
Okay. Because like, as I said, like my view comes from the, I adopt the view in social philosophy, right, of capability, because it's very useful in like the political stuff, and the I'm in education, right? So there it's really important, and then I try to generalize it, right? I try to expand it. I use that which we use in social things to expand it on an animal thing. So I've never really looked into any literature on that, except for like Martha Nussbaum's book, which I can recommend, right, on animal ethics. That was also a very interesting read.
Yeah.
That's the only work I read there.
Yeah. My view on this topic came more from talking with a lot of people about the topic than any particular book. But I think maybe Peter Singer has written some good stuff on the topic back in the day. My friend is working on something called the cognitive comparison test.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably going to be interesting. I could send that over to you when it's done.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I would love that. Thank you very much. PkD, do you have some recommendations?
About reading animal ethics?
Yeah, but like because you present this whole predator prey argument, right? Like on that specifically, that would be interesting. I'm not really. I have a lot to read right now. My topic is more like democratic theory and stuff. So I can't delve into the entire field of animal ethics, like more on this specific topic, I would say.
No, I don't have anything concrete that I can recommend. My view is just the view about against predation is just extension of my veganism. And also, when you put it into like different scenarios, right? You put like different possible worlds. You have like aliens which predates on humans. Obviously, we gonna be against that. And then I just came to that conclusion. But I'm not sure if there is an author specifically writing about that. There was this guy that Fallen showed me that went to 10 years ago to Israel or something, and he veganized the population.
Gary Yourofsky.
Yeah, this guy, I think, talked about it. Gary Yourofsky.
Yeah, he's been talking about it. So he's been a vegan for way more than 10 years. He actually went to Israel recently, and he converted like 5% of the population to being vegan in like one day. And he's recently been thinking about it, and he also has realized that we should be dispatching of predators.
What would you say? What was his name? Gary
Yourofsky.
Orofsky.
Yeah.
I'll write the name in the
I can
slide chat.
Yeah, PkD will do it.
But he's like a lecturer, but I don't know if he written about the topic. Certainly he spoke about the topic, and he said he heard the view which a colleague of his held against predation, and then he was like, damn, now I understand why you hold this view. It's actually pretty intuitive view if you reflect a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, nothing besides that, I guess.
Okay. Sounds cool. Okay.
Henry wanted to come up. Henry, bist du hier? Henry ist nicht hier. Who is Küken, by the way? Is it a friend? Like, reminds me of Cypher.
It'd be hilarious to have Cypher in here and be like, dude, the hypotheticals are unrealistic.
Interesting. But that guy was like, oh no, he also wrote articles and stuff. Okay.
Gary Yourofsky, yeah.
Yeah.
He's an activist. He's like broken into slaughterhouses to get footage of it to show people what's going on in those places.
Yeah.
He's been on news channels, debates people, stuff like that.
Yeah, because like I'm currently somewhat in the very meager attempt to find a master thesis topic, and I don't know what to pick. And I was really interested into. I was considering doing something in the ethics.
Just don't do human ethics. That wouldn't turn out good for you. Don't do human ethics.
What do you mean?
Well,
I just want you to be successful with the master thesis, and I don't think human ethics is like appropriate fit given the view that you hold that it's that you don't want to save a blind baby from a killer. I just think that wouldn't be very appropriate for a master thesis.
Well, as I said, like this is on my of my analysis of what people value, right? But I go from the other direction, right, of the consequence view, which I don't know if I don't know if that is what I have to switch. I don't know.
I implore you to go ask your fellow classmates if any of them hold such a view. I don't think you'll find not one that says, yeah, we should not stop him from killing the blind baby if we have to kill him. Not one.
Oh, they are. I know of some, right? That I would say they would actually say that. Because I mean, like in the end, right? I'm just seeing it that way, right? As far as I knew, at least until this conversation, and I will reflect on it further, it seemed to me that the thing that would be valued would be the capabilities, right? And then I would just then I was just applying my view like consistently, right? But that might be because because it's not because my understanding is right. Like I use this to delineate between in the human context, right, in the social context, and it might be not adaptable to the animal context. Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Like I've only, as I said, I the only thing that I read upon it was like Martha Nussbaum's thing. She's the one who like invented this approach, right? And she was, at least in what she said, she sounded reasonable, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, maybe it can be applied. I don't know what. Maybe I had misrepresented her view, right? To at least go back and read up on it for myself. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you go to like psycho school or something, but unless like everybody at your school was just like all the people that instead of being imprisoned were like sent to a reform school or something, I don't know how the fuck they're all gonna be saying like, yeah, let's just let that killer kill the baby. Let's not stop him if we have to use lethal force. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, what I mean is like I know of people, right, that hold at least somewhat similar views to what I hold, right? And for them it would be the same, right? It's not it wouldn't be the labs would not be in like they have some misaligned values with society. It seems like the labs would be like they have some misapprehension of what the societal values would be, right? Like what the underlying principle is.
You should get one of your schoolmates on here. I would be baffled if any of them said they would prefer to let him kill the baby than to use lethal force to stop him. I'd be baffled.
Oh, I know some like ultra hard consequentialists, right, that make some calculation and say, well, if you have like, they would even like accept like if you had the choice between a disabled person and a non-disabled person, right? They would say, yeah, always kill the disabled person, irregardless of whether
This isn't even that though. This isn't even that. This is a case where there's someone attacking someone, and not only is there someone attacking someone, the baby's not even disabled. It's just kind of crazy. Like, so the kind
no,
of
I don't
view
think
that
I know any. I don't know if anybody would say like if you had a non-disabled baby, right? But I know of people like that would say if you had the choice between a disabled person and a non-disabled person, right? Because the amount of like happiness would be higher or something, right? Stuff like that.
Well, funny enough, in this case, it's not actually been specified if the amount of happiness would be higher. But yeah, those same people, I guess, if they care about happiness, would fall prey to reductios of, yeah, if the rape felt really, really good for the rapist, like really, really good, so good that it somehow was more than the bad that the woman felt, then you're in favor of it. Like, that's just clown view.
That's how I usually criticize them. Yeah, that's what I usually say. I'm like, hey, your calculation seems a bit off there, chief. Yeah. But I don't
I'm going to be
people
honest, if
very
this is what
specialized
like Phil students or other people in your classes are saying, these are just like upstarts and they should reconsider whether or not they get into philosophy. I'm not even joking.
No, to be quick frank, right? Like if at least for me, for example, right? I didn't do any of this stuff, right? I'm pretty specialized, right? If you want to talk with me about like philosophy of education, that's my jam, right? I don't know any shit about most of meta ethics, ethical discussions, or anything. I had like one ethics thing in like the first semester. That was one
Yeah, I
ethics
was talking about
course.
your classmates.
Yeah, they the same, right? Like I've some people who are like, I do only logic, and then they only do logic, right? They just as I do, right? This conversation is maybe maybe I will do this in like some research, but it's mainly for the fun of it, right? And I'm not really, because I don't think the topic would interest me, or at least it does right now. It doesn't interest me that much that I would really dive into those type of argumentations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see in like that those seem more like, yeah, like interesting topics that are on the verge of our of I know people who are very good in ethics, right? That for sure, but I've never talked with them really about ethics that much. But in our course, I don't know how it is like. I don't know if you studied philosophy or anything, but it seems that most of us are very, very deep in very specialized topics, unlike mainly idiots and others.
Well, I don't think it takes a specialty to say like, yeah, probably this view of, letting the rapist rape is not a view that I would actually be comfortable with if I just spent about 2 minutes thinking about it. Like, I don't think that takes a specialty, honestly. I think specialty is required for, analysis for very complex moral situations. That one doesn't sound complex. Like, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, but the question is when you come from different attitudes, right? I attack that issue, right? When I think about like animal ethics, I think about like how I would do it in social philosophy, right? How I would do it in regards to like laws, right? I don't really care about like the individual ethics that much, and that's why I engage with that topic in that way, right? As I said, I've never heard certain of some of those hypothetical cases that you brought up. I just have never thought about that. It never crossed my mind because like in order to do so, I would have to engage with the topic, right? If you only go into like philosophy of law, you're going to think about completely different things.
Yeah, but remember when you came in and you said to me, well, with the name, the traits, if you disagree with the person, when you talk about the conclusion, you're only restating the disagreement. But I hope now that you see that there was something entailed on your view where you were like, aha, I never thought about that. That's like something new, right?
Correctly, I never put that in doubt. I never said that you couldn't do that, PkD. Because right now what
Yeah,
you're showing is that I was one of those people with not the ideal knowledge of my position, but with just a misapprehension, right? You just showed me some internal contradiction.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that it's some dialectic that can be used to. I've never even said that you couldn't do this or you shouldn't do this, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't.
No, that's right.
That's not
That's
what my
right.
statement was.
Yeah, but I was arguing against the statement that you're saying you're only restating a disagreement, and I'm saying, see, there is like more to it, or potentially, it could give more to it, as in this case with you.
Yeah, because I'm not willing to bite the bullet, right? Like I'm not willing to. You brought up a case, right, with which I disagree, but that is because I didn't know that this case was a consequence of my view, and I said if you had some person for which it would be the case that they know this is that those type of things are consequences of their view, and they accept that, right? Then the argument wouldn't come to some wouldn't entail a reason to change their view, right? As we established. And then you said, well, you can have the pragmatic notion, and I agree, you can have the pragmatic notion, but the question was like whether the argument would suffice to be like to entail some reason to change the view, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I think, like, look, somebody contradicts themselves, and we are like, oh, okay, that's a contradiction. But in your case, was also a contradiction, but it was like a shitty one because you were unsure.
What?
I'm saying
Yeah.
you entered both categories. The contradiction and like absurd in like a social way by saying you don't know if you prefer for the blind baby to be saved. I'm saying it is a contradiction for you not knowing, as Fallen stated it, but it's also like absurd on its face value, right? That you don't have a basic moral knowledge.
That I don't have a based on moral knowledge. What do you mean?
Yeah. That you don't share a common care or a concern that everybody has.
Well, I thought I did, right?
What do you mean you thought you did?
I thought I did, right? My analysis of what the common consideration towards is towards the capabilities, right? And now if you
Yeah.
go down those cases, I would say, yeah, okay, maybe the capability approach is not enough, and I would agree. Then I would say, okay, then roughly we would need to adopt a similar view to yours, right? But I like
Thank you.
that would be my right now understanding of the things as a layman towards it.
Yeah. Well, I
Well, I'm
appreciate
glad
your
that
being honest. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
glad that
I mean,
we finally got a sort of concession on that view, an update of the prior view. I do think it's still kind of whimsical that you don't think most people would say that, yeah, that baby should be saved via us shooting the guy. But I think that, in your heart of hearts, that's just true. Like, I think that's common
yeah,
sense.
I mean
to
that
be honest.
if I've never thought about it the way you presented, right? From the way that I thought about it, I was just applying my view consistently, right? And I was mistaken about what people would generally prefer,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I guess like it's fine. You could have forgotten the consideration of the attacker defendee sort of dynamic, and that does play into something that people care very much about. Like, look, I mean, just think about the kinds of dynamics people talk about all the time. Oh, but like they're the one that started it with him, or oh, these kids that are bullies, like they need to be dealt with. Like, people care about the direction of the dynamic. That seems to have like pretty big influence on people's judgments. But yeah, I don't need to belabor the point because I think you already get it.
Yeah.
In any case, yeah, it was nice talking. I am hungry. I got to get some food, and I have a bit of a
Yeah.
busy day today. But it was nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was really nice. I appreciate the effort that you spent on me. It was really nice. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, PkD? I might skedaddle here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for stopping by. I needed you. I couldn't handle him. He's too emotional, too high energy.
PkD.
I'm getting too old, you know. So
PkD,
yeah,
you're
thank
only
you.
as old as you feel yourself to be.
32, man. But anyway, thank you guys for facilitating this. I'm gonna bounce out as well. Next time we can debate cooking.
Okay.
Yeah. Just invite
Yeah.
me anytime, I guess. I'll see you all around.
Cool. See you. Thank you. Bye bye. Danke.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.